The reason why we came up with this subject matter, if you will, for this webinar is we just wanted to take the parent-child relationship a little bit deeper than just a relay coil and contacts. A lot of the stuff out of the box, even when we teach the class, when we go over parent-child relationships, when we discuss the whole parent-child theme inside of AutoCAD Electrical, it's usually about a relay and its contacts. And a relay and its contacts are a great example. There's no question about it, about a simple parent-child relationship. But a lot of people don't know, and some of you might, that you can create parent-child relationships out of any symbols that you want and make them intelligent from the catalog database standpoint is concerned. So that's why we just wanted to take it a little bit further. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, 3 of them actually, on different uses of a parent-child, a typical parent-child relationship, besides a relay and its contacts inside of AutoCAD Electrical. And I will start with a relay and its contacts, just to review here. Most people probably know this already. But a great example, again, is the ability to tie symbols together, to link symbols together intelligently. And if you think about any symbol, you know, again, I'm going to pick on the relay right now. If you're holding a relay in your hand, it might be 1 or maybe 2 components. But when you need to display that one component that you're holding in your hand across or inside of a schematic drawing, it could consist of 3 symbols. It could consist of 5 symbols, 6 symbols. Doesn't matter. So as an example, simple example, going back to the relay and its contacts, if I have a 2-contact relay that I've spec'd out as far as the catalog number is concerned and what I want to use to display that inside of a schematic drawing, I don't care what software you're in, we have to spread the symbols out. We got a coil, we got contacts, so it's not just one component anymore. So if I do insert a relay coil parent symbol, let's just call this a parent symbol. You've got your tag, you've got your descriptions like you normally would. And then part of the parent-child relationship is the intelligent factor. Because one thing you can do with parent-child symbols is, you know, through the catalog number, is automatically populate your terminal/pin numbers. But that's not the only goal. It's to provide the intelligence in the catalog number that lets it know how many children that it does have. So as an example, again, with a relay, if I pick a catalog number, first thing is you're going to see the pin/terminal numbers automatically get populated through the catalog number, as you can see right here. And I'll just give it a location code. Let's call it MCAB 5. So there's my parent symbol. Now maybe I have a couple of contacts, because if you do recall, I probably did it too fast. The catalog number that I had chosen was set up for a 2-contact relay. So if I insert one of the child symbols, and I'm just going to randomly put it in anywhere here, you know, link it to the parent symbol. All the information that you already filled in for the parent symbol automatically gets carried over, and it fills in your terminal/pin numbers. They call it pins, I call it terminal/pins. and they're linked together. You can see the cross-reference right here, 403, meaning it's cross-referencing back to the parent symbol at reference number 403, which is right here, and then you got your normally open contact cross-referenced. And then if I insert another one, again, I'm just randomly putting these in anywhere. And I select the parent symbol, and it fills in the next set of pin numbers. And that's all well and good, but through the catalog number is where the real intelligence occurs, because if I try to insert another one somewhere, it's going to tell me I ran out of contacts. That's where the real intelligence occurs, you know, between a parent-child relationship. Anybody can link two symbols together. You just give it the same tag. But if you really want to tie the intelligence into a catalog number, that's where you build the intelligence in, is in the catalog number itself, because the catalog number that I gave it was only good for a two-contact relay. I'm trying to insert a third. And that's all done through the catalog number itself. So if I go to edit this, and this is where, you know, when people first start using the software, you know, and I go over this in class all the time, in the catalog number, to build that intelligence, to let it know that it's only, in this case, good for a two-contact relay. We have two columns in the catalog number, one for coil pins and one for pin list. And this has always been a pet peeve of mine. I wish this column would be called parent pins, because not every parent symbol is a relay coil. And the key to that is the type is undefined when you go to implement the pin/terminal number layout. It's not an open or closed contact. It's a coil. And then when you set up the children, you know, this particular catalog number, once again, is good for a two-contact relay. So that's why there's two children in here, and they're just predefined as a convertible contact. And that's where the intelligence comes in when I tried to insert a third. It knew it's only good for two. So, you know, once again, it's not just about linking two symbols together, you know, having the same tag, getting a little bit of cross-referencing in. It's about building intelligence into a catalog number as well. So like in this case, if I did try to insert a third contact, it's smart enough to know it. So going back to my original point, you know, if you're setting up, which I'm going to show you right now, a parent-child relationship that's not just a relay, coil, and contacts, you know, just don't be alarmed when you see coil pins. Think of that as parent pins. Pin list is okay, you know. I wish they would have maybe preceded it with child pin list, but, you know, at least it just says pin list. So again, a relay coil, or a relay in general, is a great example of how a parent-child relationship works. But as I like to say, not the only example. When I was doing this for a living, my company used a lot of drives. And this was a while ago when, I won't show my age here, but we used a lot of drives. And I would set up two different scenarios. One, I'd have a drive where all the connection points for the drive were on one symbol. So basically I drew all my wires off of the drive, but it stayed in one drawing. So an example of that, I'm going to insert this particular drive right here. And I'm just going to randomly drop it down, let's say right here. And if you look at this already, notice that the pins have been predefined. I built the pin/terminal numbers, gave them a default value in the symbol when I created it. So when I insert it, they're automatically going to get populated. Remember, it's every single connection point. I can still give it a catalog number. And I get this like you normally would because I already have my terminal/pin numbers built into the symbol itself. And you still give it installation, location, whatever you want. I'll call this a Z-axis on the drive itself. And I pick OK. And this, again, it's one symbol. I'm not intending it to have child symbols that link back to here for this particular example. So at this point, I can insert some wires like you normally would. Then the other connection points for this symbol are located right here. So if everything stayed in the same drawing, you know, I could draw some more wires, let's say coming off of the connection points. And then maybe, you know, maybe that particular connector was going to another connector. So I'll just insert, just as an example on how it might get wired up. And typically I'd fill information in here just to save time. We're not going to. So that would be an example of, you know, just your basic parent symbol. No child symbols are going to be linked to it. You're going to show all the wiring in one drawing. And that's not uncommon. I'm not telling anybody not to do it that way. But another example might be where maybe I want to show the face of the drive with my three-phase wires in one drawing, but maybe I want to show this connector that's part of the drawing in a different drawing or in the same drawing, but I just wanted to show it somewhere else. So if that's the case, I'm going to do an example now where I'm going to insert basically the same symbol, but this is going to be a child symbol off of the parent. So in this case, I'm going to go back to my icon menu and I'll insert this particular drive. And this time, again, I'll just drop it in the middle of nowhere here. And notice this time, no pin information is predefined like it was in the previous one. So I'm going to go to my lookup. And I'll assign it a different catalog number. And notice that the pins automatically get populated. And there are only 3 pin/terminal numbers. And I'll give it same description, same location code. And again, this would be an example of I only want to show the three. So I go back to my multiple bus, insert the wires once again. Now on this one, I still show this X6 connector that's on the drive, but it's only there for display only. There's no connection points right there. The only connection points I have is the A1, the A2, and A3. If I temporarily explode this symbol, you're going to see that, you know, there are no connection points on this particular part of the symbol itself, like you see over here. Let me just undo here. So it's just the three-phase wires, but I'm still displaying the whole drive. Now I'll come to a different drawing. You know, maybe I wanted to show that X6 connector from the drive on a different drawing. And it could still be going to a connector symbol. It could be going to, you know, an IO card. It could be going to wherever that X6 connector from the drive, wherever it goes to. So this time, I'm going to go back and I'm going to insert my child symbol from the drive. And again, I'll just drop it down in the middle of nowhere. And it's no different. This is what I try to tell people. They're no different than a relay coil and contacts, right? My parent symbol for the relay coil was the coil. For the relay was the coil. My parent symbol for the drive was the face of the drive. My child symbol, and I just made the one, was that X6 connector. So just like you do with any parent-child relationship, pick your parent symbol, and notice that the pin numbers get filled in just like they did in the contacts on the relay. All the information for that matter, which is typical. All the information at the child symbol gets carried over to the parent. So I pick OK. And you can see that right here, it's cross-referencing to reference number 1421. Which is where this symbol lives. And then the child symbol portion is cross-referencing to reference number 1242, which is right here. So all that works the same. And again, if I wanted to drop down another symbol in a separate drawing, now let me throw my wires down first. That'll make it easier. And like I said, this particular X6 connector that's on the drive, you know, the wires could be going not just to a connector, but, you know, whatever other component that those wires might be going to. So in this case, I'll just drop another connector symbol down. Now, once again, because, you know, when you think about it, yeah, big deal. All he did is link, you know, one symbol with another just by giving it the same tag. Where, again, the intelligence comes into play. You know, let's say I lose my bearings and I try to insert another child symbol off of that drive. you're going to get the same alert as you do with a relay coil and its contacts. It's smart enough to know, hey, you only have the one child symbol on that drive. You can't use another one. So I would typically cancel here. And then if I did have another setup where I had two child symbols on the same drive, I would use that setup. So now the question is, how did I get here? You start with the symbol. And again, if I just temporarily explode this. Actually, let me just copy it real quick so I leave that intact. And I'll just copy it over to here. So I'm going to explode it to start with. And as I mentioned, like with this one, all the connection points for that X6 connector are already there. On the child symbol, they're not. So when I created the parent-child setup, I just basically copied this symbol like I did on this one, exploded it, and I erased the connection points that are associated to it. But I left, everything to display. This is just generic single line text right here, before I created the symbol, because it's just about the display. That's it. Now, when you go to create the symbol itself, and I'm not going to go through all the gyrations of, the symbol builder, but just to point a couple things out here. If I select my objects, pick a base point, it's going to be a horizontal parent. And the type, and this is something I, go over in class pretty hard too. And some of you might know this already. A lot of you probably do. This particular list is not a complete list of all the tables that are in the catalog database. This list dictates the attribute choices you're going to get in the next dialog box during the symbol creation. Now, since I don't have a choice for drives, I can't pick drives right here to create a drive type of symbol. And this is kind of a side note. Anytime you look at this list and you're trying to create a symbol and you don't see the category on here that you're expecting, first thing you should do is go check for a list of all the tables. So as an example, if I didn't know, I want to be able to check to see if there is a drive table out there. And one place to do that is the catalog browser itself. I had my catalog browser on. There it is. And you can see, that there is an actual drive table. So I don't have to create a new table, which we encourage people to do. You can create new tables all day long. We always say keep them at 2 characters. Makes life easier on the symbol. But the point is, I've got a drive table. So again, once I go to create the symbol, the main reason why I bring this up is you're going to be creating parent symbols that might be, not on that original list in the symbol builder. Because the whole point of this is, thinking outside of the box with some different types of symbols that you might use for a parent symbol or even a child symbol. And that's why I bring the tables up. So when you do create the symbol itself, once again, I'll go back to selecting objects, picking a base point. I'm going to leave it on generic. And the key here, now this is already filled in because it's already built into the symbol, but normally, whoop, when you go to generic, your family attribute is going to be blank. So you want to make sure that you put the table from the catalog database in the family attribute field. And that's so important for those that don't know, because when you hit that lookup button to go assign it, you want it to look at the right table. And then the tag, you can make it anything you want. Some people will keep it whatever the name of the table is, but you don't have to, as you can see here. And then the other caution, when you do go to create, a different type of symbol, let's say for a parent symbol, this is going to, when you pick generic, it doesn't matter what you filled in on the symbol. Like the family, I had to type this in at one point, DR. But since I chose generic in that first dialog box, this is still going to come up as DV. So when you use generic, you still want to make sure you pick the proper table, because it's so important to the symbol naming convention. So this is what I did to create it. And then I just put my own spin on the symbol name, like, as you know, or I'm assuming some of you know, when you create a custom symbol, you can put your own spin on the symbol name, and that's where I would get into the detail of the symbol name. But again, the reason why I'm bringing this up is when you go generic on a symbol, you still want to make sure that you hit the catalog lookup in the last dialog box of the symbol so you can apply the proper table, not just leave it as DV. So let me get out of that. So that's how I went about creating the actual symbol. And you're not done at that point. It's all, or a lot of it is about the catalog. Like I just showed you with the relay, to really make it intelligent and not just have two symbols cross-referencing each other. If I go back to edit here, when I added this catalog number, once again, coil pins, think of this, think of this as parent pins or parent terminal numbers. So when I set this up, I still wanted the drive to be my parent symbol, but only show the three-phase portion. So that's why I left the category, once again, just like you would with a relay. This is not an open or closed contact. And then you just fill in the actual pin/terminal numbers. But for the child symbols, unlike the relay, this is going to be set to undefined as well. And this is where, I get a lot of questions about feedback, support, whatever, when people are trying to do different things with the parent-child relationship. If you have a child symbol other than a normally open, a normally closed, a Form C, or a convertible, you leave it as undefined, because it's not any of those symbols, but it could be any symbol you want. So you leave it as undefined, and that's where I plugged in the terminal/pin numbers. I'm just going to cancel out of here. So that's why when I initially inserted the parent, it automatically just populated the pin/terminal numbers on the parent, because that's what I defined them as. And then on the child, Here's the 1 through 6. You just saw that in the catalog number under the pin list column. It was undefined because it's not the contact. And then you just fill in the terminal/pin numbers to go to whatever symbol that you want. So that's my whole point here is you don't just have to, parent-child relationships are not just about relay coils and contacts. Another example. I'm going to open up this drawing right here. And I'm going to open up a fluid power drawing. Just again, thinking out of the box. So essentially, between these two drawings, I'm going to add a proc switch to the input module and a solenoid to the output. And I want to be able to display those on my pneumatic drawing. In this, you might have seen other webinars or videos from us in the past talking about peer-to-peer relationships. You can still use peer-to-peer when you're dealing with fluid power, if that's the case. But as an alternative, you can go to the normal parent-child relationship as well if I want to represent a proc switch and a solenoid on the pneumatic diagram. So as an example, let me add a proc switch to start with. And I'm just going to drop it down on this particular wire. And then for the description, I'll just call it pin press stop position retract. And then under catalog data, I'm going to hit the lookup button. And I'll just assign it this first Eaton catalog number. And once again, I probably should have pointed that out. Notice that it automatically filled in the pin/terminal numbers. Those were blank when I originally just put this in. I'll give it a location code again. And then I'm going to pick OK at the bottom. There's my parent symbol on a proc switch. Now I'm going to insert the solenoid symbol. And again, this is the parent symbol. No pin numbers have been automatically populated as of yet. And I'll just call this pin press retract it. So I go back to the catalog number, and I'll just again pick this very first Norgren. You notice that the pins, once again, just like any parent symbol, could be relay coil, could be proc switch, could be a drive symbol. I have it automatically populate. So now I want to take that information and translate it to my pneumatic drawing. So this time, I'm going to insert a representation of that proc switch, meaning I'm going to drop it down, let's say, right about here. I'll go to my parent sibling. Whoop, I'm going to go to my project, since it's in a different drawing. Here it is right here. You notice this has no pin numbers or pins or connection points. This would be set up just as a display. I want to represent that proc switch from my input module, but it's not like I'm going to do any wiring to the proc switch when I display it in my pneumatic drawing. So that's why those are grayed out. But you can see it did cross-reference. It's, you know, at 710, there's the cross-reference that goes back to the parent symbol over here. So at reference number 1102, there's that same parent-child relationship. All the cross-referencing is fine. And then I do the same thing with a solenoid. In this, I'll drop down, let's say right here, and I'll pick that solenoid that I just dropped in. In this, I'm getting this because I added an extra 1 on the end of the symbol name. Normally I wouldn't, but it still works fine, carries all the information from the parent symbol. This actually does have a pin/terminal number on it. And once again, and you can see it through the surfer too, you know, you can see those symbols are indeed linked together. And then the same with the proc switch. Now let me go back to the parent symbols, particularly the catalog number. A lot of this is tied, as far as the intelligence is concerned, a lot of it's tied to the catalog number. Because like I said, you can take any two symbols and link them together just by giving them the same tag. But that doesn't necessarily make it intelligent. So you can see all I have is the parent/coil pins populated. Because when I put the proc switch down, those terminal/pin numbers automatically got populated because of right here. You notice that there's nothing in the pin list. I have a child, but there's nothing in the pin list because it's just there for display, which you can do all day long. People don't realize that. And then if I look at the solenoid, and I go into edit mode, and notice here I do have pin numbers, terminal numbers for the parent symbol. And that's why you just saw them automatically get populated in the output drawing. But I do have connection points on the child as well. So that's why it's filled in there. And once again, that child symbol that was created, it's just that little solenoid. I'll go back to it in a minute. It's not an open contact. It's not a closed contact. You can make a child symbol out of any symbol you want. When you go to add the intelligence to the catalog database, you just leave it as undefined. Because again, if I go and take a look at that symbol, you know, right here, that's the symbol itself. That's it. The graphics is 4 lines, but I can still make a child symbol out of it. I can still make it intelligent in a parent-child relationship. And if I take a look at these symbols, I'll start with the prox one. When I created this, you go through the symbol builder like I just did with the drive. The category is there as far as the table, but you're used to a lot of these attributes already. You got the tag, you got descriptions, you got your cross-reference, installation, location. If you're proficient at making all that stuff, same with installation, location. And here I terminal / connector descriptions. And if I look at these, because you might have a lot of symbols created already where, you've got your connection points down, you've got your descriptions, you've got your tag, you got all that. But it's just a matter of, maybe you make a child symbol out of it. So when you go to the symbol builder, the default tag value when you create a child versus a parent. But again, if I explode this, we got all the same attributes used to. Normal symbol. And again, just is tied to the table that you want to point to when you go to hit the lookup button. Can't stress that enough. In the symbol builder, make sure your table is pointing, through that family attribute to the proper table. And again, some of you probably know this already, but it's all about when you hit that lookup button, you want to make sure that it goes to the proper category, which is a table in the catalog database. So, to surmise, as I said originally, a lot of stuff out of the box might feel like parent-child relationships can only be a coil and its contacts, or there's other examples out of the box with like selector switches, even breakers, especially the 3-phase breakers that are out of the box, they're automatically parent, child, child. But as you just saw, don't be shy about thinking out of the box. It's just different situations. Like I said, in this first scenario over here, this would be a case where you want to show all the wiring in one drawing. But if you've got a symbol, any symbol, not just a drive symbol, any symbol at all, an HMI symbol, you can create a parent-child, an intelligent parent-child relationship out of it, just like I did with this example over here. And it's all about, once again, the catalog number. When you go to set it up through those two fields, the coil pins and the pin list, think parent pins, think child pins, and don't just think contacts. Parent, a lot of times the parent's going to be undefined, but you might not be used to choosing undefined for a child symbol because most of the choices are for a relay coil and contacts. So that does it for me. How's Gary doing in the question area? Any questions? Am I? Let me try and look at the questions on another monitor here. Might go over this, but what if I'm can't read the thing. But what if hold on a minute here. Gary or Ashley, can you see all the questions?
Yes, I can. It looks like Gary's answered one of them. He may be having some sound issues. We can't hear him, but let's see.
I can't read the one that says it starts with if you have 4 normally open contact relay, but then it gets cut off.
Okay, if you click on the question, it will open up bigger, but if not, I'll read it to you. It says if you have 4 no contact relay with coil and pinless defined and add a contact block adder 3/1 and set the pin list set up for the adder block, will all available pin list be available as you add the additional contacts?
Yeah, I mean you can build that into the catalog number. If you use them, you use them. If you don't, you don't. So you can absolutely set it up like that. Let's see.
Do you want me to read another one?
Okay, I'm just looking at the first one. Is there no way to alter the symbol builder table to allow for DR to show instead? I'm chuckling at that because we get it all the time. The answer is no, because ultimately that they just didn't, they don't convey it real well, and it's always driven me nuts. But when you go to create any symbol, as you know, obviously, whoever asked this question, and this, when I teach this in class for the first time, it can be very confusing because this is not a complete list of tables that are in the catalog database, like he just asked and like I just explained. But this is not intended to be, even though they don't, convey it very well. This wasn't intended to be a complete list of all the tables. It was intended to be tied to the template attributes that come in with each one of those categories. A lot of the attributes are the same when you go into the symbol builder, but some of them do vary from category to category. When you choose generic, like I did, it just basically gives you every attribute known to mankind that you can incorporate into the symbol itself. But, don't shoot the messenger. I agree with you. I wish they would have just made this a complete list of all the tables that are in your catalog database, and that way it would take any confusion out of it. But unfortunately, we can't touch that. Maybe they will in the future. You might go over this, but what if you want to have multiple different child contacts? That's where it gets cut off, maybe? You can have as many different child contacts as you want. As I showed you, you know, one was a contact, one was a, you know, one was a symbol, you know, that looks like this. Another child symbol looked like, you know, I had on the solenoid and the proc switch. So you can have multiple different types of child symbols. You know, I know I separated them, and that's probably what you're thinking, you know, per a solenoid, per a prox, but you could take a symbol that you create, a child symbol that you created for a solenoid, incorporate it into a, you know, parent prox symbol. Doesn't matter what the symbol is. You can have different symbols for any given setup.